Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the show. So I'm here with David Richter from Simple CFO Solutions. This is going to be different than what you're used to. You know, we're always talking about real estate and we're always talking about money and the different obstacles that people have to overcome to reach the levels of success they are at. Well, some of those obstacles are how do you actually run this monster of a business I've just created? That's what David's going to talk about. That's what the show is going to be about today. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about you and your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker. So becoming a Rebel Banker always starts with getting started and taking action. So that's where you got to start. So grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide. There's so many other books out there that will help you get there. But you know what? The most important thing that I can give to each and every single one of you on this journey to being Rebel Bankers is get started and start doing. So with that being said, let's jump right into this. So David, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
You're welcome. So let's talk a little bit about your business. So Simple CFO Solutions, like tell us a little bit about what it is you do, and then we'll take a trip back in time and, you know, kind of figure out how you put this whole thing together.
Sure. The business is really to help real estate investors specifically know the financial portion of their business, help them know their numbers, not only know them, but like what to do with them once they actually know their numbers, how they can make the decisions. And there's a lot of investors that I found really don't like that portion of their business. So it's getting in there and actually being able to explain to the owner, here's your finances and here's what it means. And then we also help not only that, but implement a system for their profit. So like whenever there's money that comes into the business, appropriating that to different accounts, like for operating expenses and income, and making sure that they have their cash flow managed. It's basically a cash flow management system. And I also help too, because of the different companies I've been a part of, I really help on the systems and processes too, depending on like who I'm working with and how big they are. That's another thing that we help too, is just looking at the business as a whole too. So the first two things we really focus on is that financial side, but then the business as a whole too.
That's great. And, you know, that's a huge thing. And, you know, I've been self-employed since 16. So I've gone through the hard knocks of learning all this stuff the hard way. But I can tell you, I've seen so many companies, you know, it's easy when a company, you know, or somebody wants to get in and flip a house, right? You see the show, you jump in, you can swing a hammer, you do your first flip, which you can get around that. But then when you start doing 5, 10, 15, or you're wholesaling, you start doing some volume, like at that point, the reality sets in that, holy cow, I gotta run a business. I gotta learn QuickBooks. I gotta learn accounting. I gotta learn bookkeeping. I gotta do all this stuff. Make sure all these people are getting paid. I got payroll. How does that work? All of that stuff comes at you really fast. It's like getting hit by a freaking freight train sometimes. And, you know, that's the hardest thing for some people because they're good at one aspect of real estate, but maybe they're not so good at learning how to run the business and knowing when to make decisions based on the proper financials. So, David, I know we're going to get into that, but take us back in time and tell us a little bit about kind of how you got this knowledge, how you got there. Because I know you know, before the show, we were talking a little bit and, you know, you didn't go to school to be a CPA or an accountant, you know, you went to be a teacher. So how did you get this knowledge and how'd you do this? Let's hear the story.
Sure. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this might have had the same experience. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in college. You know, I was about 18 or 19.
That darn book.
And I know, right? I got another one. So it really changed my thinking on money and just real estate and everything. So that was what introduced me to it. So I went out and bought my first house because I was like, I want to take action and not just read about this stuff. So I fixed and flipped my first house, put a rent-to-own person in there after I had lived in it for 2 years with my newlywed wife. And so after 2 years, we put a rent-to-own person in there. 6 months later, he cashed me out, which was crazy because I was working with a company then where we had a ton of rent-to-owns and only 2 had cashed out to that point. So like my experience was, okay, I like this. I need to do this more. So I bought some more rentals. On the side, while I was working at that same time, I started working with a real estate investment company where we were wholesaling, fix and flipping, turnkeying. And at one point, we took it from about 80 wholesale deals a year up into the 300 point to where we were wholesaling, fix and flipping, turnkeying. And I got to sit on the leadership of that company and pretty much sit in every single seat. For about 5 years, I worked with them and I was in acquisitions, I was in the dispositions and sales, the property management, project management, the accounting, the finance portion, closings and the transaction coordination. So I got to see how a business should run and how you should scale it up. And I got to see a lot of things you shouldn't do too, if we're going to be completely honest. It wasn't just all rainbows and butterflies. So I got to see kind of like going through those growth pains and seeing about going from about 5 employees to 27 at one point. I think it was our highest one. So we had a lot of people. We had virtual assistants that we were working with. So I've seen a ton of things in the real estate world. And about a year ago, I moved from the area that I was working in there. I moved to a different part of the country with my family, and I started working with another investor. And I really helped transform his books on the financial side, because that's really what I gravitated to after working in the business, because I saw that, first of all, a lot of the owners didn't really like the financial portion of their side. They were like, I want to do the marketing, the sales. We need to get those deals in, which is super important. But then on the other side, they don't know where their money is. They didn't know where it was going. They're like, okay, my bank account's really high today. I'm really happy. But then the next day it was really low. Where'd all the money go? So that's where I really saw a big need. And then last year, the guy I was working with said, you should really help other people with this. I think there's a huge need. And that kind of got me thinking about it. I'm a huge avid reader too. I think last year was the highest year I've read book for, and I think it was 130. So it's like, so I'm an avid reader, always trying to grow. So I was reading about, okay, what do I need to do to actually start the business? So then I launched it last year, where I'm helping people, especially real estate investors, on the financial side of their business, that making sure that they know their numbers, but not only that, what to do with their numbers. And that's where I was talking about at the beginning. So that's just a very quick overview of how I came to be in this position and work in this company and actually start this company, because I saw a huge need where there's a lot of people that are owners of these companies. They're doing maybe 10, 20, 30, even hundreds of deals a year sometimes, and they just don't know their numbers, or they don't like it. So they're just like, we're not going to manage that side. As long as we have enough deals and there's money in the bank, we're good. That's where a lot of the people are thinking that. And I was just like, okay, slow down. Let's see where your company really is. Because all these people have a process for buying a house. They say, I've got this formula. I'm going to make sure that this is a good deal. They've got all those things. But then on their own business, they're not even treating it like one of their deals that they're bringing into their fold. They're not saying, okay, is my business a good deal? Like, how am I analyzing my business? Do I have a formula or some way to be able to see if I'm doing well or not? So I want to come in and help the owners there. And I've been able to help quite a few so far. It's been a fun journey. And that's kind of where it brings us to today with a really quick overview.
And it's funny, I've always been the type of person that runs a business from the financials, the profit and loss and the balance sheet. And I can't remember, it was a couple months ago, I was talking to somebody on the podcast, and I basically just, I asked him, it was a CPA, and I said, what do most people know about a profit and loss? And his answer was one that just blew me away. He said, most people think that the money left in the bank at the end of the month is their profit. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. That is the craziest thing. And you said something that made me think of that, because you had mentioned, that they're like, well, if we got enough deals, we got money in the bank, guess things are good. Well, maybe they're not. You almost have to forecast things, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. And especially, one of the things that I find so fascinating about what you do is, if businesses go and they keep operating, where it's about the deals, which I understand. Yes, that's how you make your revenue. So we're all very good at learning and knowing how to make money, but then they got the money in the bank. But at a certain point in time, where are you going with the business? Where are you taking this business? And then all of a sudden, when either you get slapped in the head, you get an audit or something like that, and you got to go back, and now you got to recreate all these records for however many years. That's almost, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but number one, extremely costly. Number two, very stressful. I wouldn't wish that. Actually, I would wish that on my worst enemy, to have to go back 3 years and literally put all that data into QuickBooks so that it would be ready. So how do you actually come into a company that, let's say, has been in operation a year? They've been operating kind of much like many companies, where we got deals and we got our bank account. Great. What else do we got to do? Oh, we also have a checking account. So how do you help them? What would be just a simple protocol on how you work with a company?
We actually dive into their financials, and they send us the statements. We make sure that we get it into QuickBooks. If they already have QuickBooks, then it's going through there. And if someone was putting them in, looking to see if they're in the proper place, because even though there might be a bookkeeper that's helping them, they don't know how to categorize certain things. Because I'm going to be very honest, real estate investor books are not like a service-based company or like
No.
a widget-based company where you hold assets, you have liabilities. If you're getting private money, you have different things like that that you need to know where things go inside of that business. So that's where, if no one's done anything, we can still help them. We go in there and actually put the information in there for them. But if someone's been doing the information, we're just double checking, is it in the right place? And then if it is in the right place, are they doing some type of monthly meeting at least to go over those numbers, or a weekly meeting or something to be able to pull that out? But our actual day-to-day operation is we have people on the back end make sure we go in and take their bank statements or wherever they can get us that information, so that way we can put it into like a QuickBooks type system or any other, software system that deals with accounting. But that's the nuts and bolts of it. We would go in and make sure that the things are appropriated to the right place, because like I said, it's a lot different than a service-based company or some of these other companies that don't hold assets. Like even a real estate agent, a real estate agent does services, but if they're not buying the actual properties, they're not holding assets. So it's like a real estate investment company has some different things than some of these other companies out there.
Yeah. And I know the sheer amount, like if a company's a fix and flip or a rental company, just the sheer amount of checks a company has to write on a week in and week out basis can be a daunting task. So if you're just writing checks and you're not putting them in the system, number one, you'll never know what your balance is. You'll never know like what your actual profits are on a property. So, I love that you said that you help classify. And one of the things you didn't mention, but I knew you were getting to, is you create classes for each one of their different either divisions or each property. And that allows you to then almost compartmentalize each property in its own little profit center, which is so vital. And so few people do that. And the other thing too is, this is the real estate money school. We're always talking about, money in real estate, using private loans, working with investors and everything else. And one of the things that I still, because, I've been doing this too long, sometimes you just kind of think that everybody knows things. But the simple fact that when you're dealing with someone else's money, okay, let's say you're dealing with a private loan, it goes through the proper channels and the money after the closing comes to you. People just take that money and they just dump it in their operating account, which everything else feeds out of. Like, how are you ever going to keep accurate track of that person's money? And I don't know about most real estate investors that you work with, but I know operating accounts can be like the black abyss. Anything that goes in there, poof, it's gone, man. It's like a black hole. So if you put your investors' money in there, it can just poof, be gone. And then all of a sudden you can't finish your deal. So earlier we were talking a little bit about the segregated accounts, and I really think that is just such a simple thing that, I think probably you and I are just like, well, duh, why wouldn't you keep separate accounts for either separate properties or separate private investors' money to keep it segregated? But most people don't know about that. So let's spend a few minutes, because I find that that's such a simple thing and it's so vitally important, and it will seriously help a company scale and stay honest with themselves and, keep their investors very happy with segregated accounts. So take it from there.
Sure. So, and I love the points you brought up too, because it's so simple to be able to track those things, but people don't know how simple it is to be able to track a private lender's money on the book. So, where is this private money? Where is, who is it assigned to the right person? But then piggybacking off what you were saying about the different accounts, where what I teach is, if you've never read the book Profit First, I would highly recommend reading that book by Mike Michalowicz. But he teaches in there a lot of the businesses don't have a good cash flow management system. And it's really about setting up different accounts, like an income account. I help also real estate investors specifically open up like an OPM account, like an other people's money account, to make sure that you put it there. And I really like that account too, because I've had people ask me, well, what if you're doing a ton of deals, and you're mixing them all in there? That's where QuickBooks can really come in and help you with that. Or it depends on really how many investors you're working for or working with. You might want to set up an account per investor too, but that's just totally on the person's, what their preference is. But at least having one account where other people's money goes into there, because if you're using that money for your deals and like for the fix and flip or whatever, and you're putting that money in there for the rehabs, but let's just say you're just doing one deal and then that money's gone. Well, guess what? You just blew your budget. Now you have to use your own money. So it's helping you see if you're having to dip into your own account too, because having them separated, if anyone out there is a property manager, you already have to do this with the deposits, the security deposits, or you should be doing that with the security deposits. But this is the actual money that we're talking about for another account, for like the private money that you're getting from other people to secure these deals and lock them up and then go and rehab them or whatnot. Or even if you're just securing that money to buy the property and then sell it because you're doing a wholesale deal, or a double close or whatnot too. It's just better to always have that separated so you're not commingling that. And like Chris was saying, that operating expense account, which is one of the accounts, becomes a black abyss where it goes in there and it goes right out. And that's where a lot of people, just having like one extra account really helps them see this is my money versus other people's money. And so that's just it's very eye-opening to people too. Like, okay, then obviously I need to make more money in order for my account to go up. And like, if my account's not going up, then I'm not using other people's money just to fund my day-to-day living expenses, because that's really not what you want to use that money for. You want to use that money for what its intended purpose was. Especially if it's for a property or an asset that you have on the books already. So I'm glad you brought that up again, because it's a key thing that's very simple, but that a lot of investors they probably don't even think about that when they're starting their business, or they don't even think about having another account for that, where it's just a very simple thing you can do right at the beginning, no matter what stage you're in, and then start putting the other people's money in there. And that's just one other thing that we help do. But also maybe have a tax account too, so that you can be saving for your taxes throughout the year. And I like setting up, because in Profit First, he talks about a profit account too for the business. So that way you can set aside profit that's specifically for you and for the company, making sure that you're a healthy company, you actually have profit. But the other big one, like I was saying, is the tax account, saving for your taxes at the end of the year, making sure not only the business is taken care of, but if you have to pay taxes on your personal income because it's flowing through to you, that you've got enough to cover that too. So setting up some of those different accounts to manage the cash flow and to give you peace of mind. Like, hey, I'm going to have money in this tax account and I can pull it out of that account because I'm not thinking about it until tax time comes. So that's really, if you can separate some of that out, that's really what I teach. And from the book Profit First, and I'm a Profit First certified person, or whatnot too. So it's like, there's a whole school of thinking in that way. And it sounds like from your experience too, Chris, that you've done that with your own in your business, and it's really helped also.
Yeah, I mean, I started when we, back too many years ago when we started doing it. I always ran a payroll account, an operating account, and then we'd had a tax account back, when I had my skateboard, snowboard shops, and real estate. But real estate is a different animal. Let me just kind of, we have 28 accounts, which I know people say I'm crazy. When I first met my property manager, they said, "You're nuts. Why wouldn't you just do classes inside the account?" I said, "Because this is how I like to do it." But, really, here's what it comes down to. We use a ton of money from other investors, right? We operate under a very large other people's money, private lending type of operation. We do a lot of volume. So when I looked at it, I said, if I was lending money, I would want to know that my funds are being allocated properly and being used properly. So think about a process and a system. How easy would it make your life if you were dealing with an investor and you're trying to build a relationship? You close on the property, the funds come over to you. You tell that investor, "Mr. Investor, part of our process is what we're going to do when we get the funds allocated from this deal that you put in. We are going to put your funds in a segregated account. Then what we're going to do is we're also going to create a class for this particular property in QuickBooks. So at any time, if you ever wanted to know how these funds are being used, I can print out just the bank account. You can see all the activity from the start straight through of exactly how your funds are being sent. Then what we can also do is we can print out the report in QuickBooks to show you exactly who was paid, how much they were paid. So if you ever really wanted to see that, we are well able to do that because we treat your money completely separate from everybody else's money, including ours. We segregate it. Right then and there, with a conversation that easy and that simple with that investor, you just instantly got credibility and trust, because that investor now knows that their money is not going to be mixed in. They can ask and get whenever they want full records. It's just transparency. And I know that just hearing that for the audience, I know that's such a simple thing, but do you know how few people are actually doing that? I don't know why. I mean, maybe people are that lazy or so that just, oblivious or just not even paying attention, but like get up, go to the bank and open another bank account. It literally will take you less than a half hour to do that. Heck, if you're that busy, fax or email the information to your bank teller or your manager over there. They'll gladly open the account. And then in today's modern technology, every single good bank has an online banking system that will aggregate all of your corporate accounts, and you can literally pull it up, look at every one of your accounts, transfer money between accounts if you ever needed to with a due to, due from. I mean, it's so easy. Heck, you can even pay all your investors interest payments directly through the banking platform using bill pay. Like, folks, don't create more work for yourself. Get smarter, develop processes and systems. And you know what? If you're sitting there saying, I just don't know how to do that, boom, this guy does. Use him and have him set you up so you don't get yourself in trouble. So you're not like looking back, oh my God, I remember seeing that podcast. I wish, and I should have, I could have, I wish I would have done that. It's just do it. Stop wasting time and do it.
That's where, and I was just thinking as you were saying that, some owners might be like, oh, I can't do that. That sounds like a lot of work. How do I do that in QuickBooks? How do I do this and that? You got to start thinking like an owner. A true owner doesn't have to do everything. He has to make sure he has the people in place to do that and make sure that, and even if they're not doing it, to know where to go to get that information. Correct. To be able to do it. Because you're speaking my language. I love systems and processes. Anything that I can automate and make go faster and be like, I don't have to touch this again or think about it. I love it. So it's like inside of there, what you were saying, use the bill pay system or use a bill.com or a receipt bank, things that automatically connect to some of these softwares like QuickBooks. So that way it's like you're already paying it there and then it just pushes it right into QuickBooks, allocates it to where it needs to be. And then, hey, you're already done. And it's like, and that stuff is happening automatically. So I love the fact that you were saying, hey, you don't even need to know how to do it right now. You just need to have access to know like, okay, I can do this. And there's automatic ways to do it. So it's not like I have 28 bank accounts now. Now I have to manage 28 and I've got to do all these things from these different accounts. I got to write a check from each account. No, you never have to touch a check in like today's world ever again. There's all the online bill pays. There's the different systems that connect right to your account that you can send right from the internet. They'll write checks for you, like a bill.com, things like that. So it's very easy to set this up if you know that stuff is out there. And a lot of people just don't know that stuff is available for them, but it's available for your owners. So that way you as an owner can go out there and actually have a handle on this. And what he was saying too, what Chris was saying about going in and seeing the investor, I love that too, of being able to say, here's what your money is allocated for. Here it is in QuickBooks. Here's a report. Just like you said, instant credibility. And do you think that lender is going to want to lend to you again? Well,
they won't want their money back. They won't want their money back. They'll just want the cash flow.
Exactly. They'll say, how many more deals are you doing right now? They'll be asking you for your deal. So if you have something like that, that just goes a long way, because that's the difference between the solopreneur and a business owner, someone who's actually got a business. Read that book too. Yeah, exactly. So it's the total difference between going out there and just doing it yourself and actually having a system and process. Right. And honestly, like we were saying, it doesn't take that long, and you could do it at no matter what stage you're in, your first house or your 1,000th house. You can have a system for that, and it's just as simple as either setting up that account and making sure it's going into QuickBooks correctly or some type of software like that.
I got a sound for that. I always try to find a sound effect. That's what happens when you don't set your business up and you realize, holy crap, now what? That's the sound effect you'll be making. So like what he was just explaining, I always refer to, I'm a huge fan of Henry Ford. And, I'm also a book reader, not nearly as much as you are, but Henry Ford, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, but one of the things that he was really good at doing is finding the right people to do the right things in his business, because he wasn't a smart man, but he was a smart businessman. You don't have to be smart to be able to run a business. You just have to be smart enough to know that you're not smart enough to know everything. He had a row of buttons on his desk, and I don't know how long that row was, but no matter what he needed, he had a button to push for every single thing. If he had a question and he couldn't answer it, he pushed a button to the person that could answer that question. That's how everybody, if you're not smart enough to run the business or you don't know how, get yourself a button, get yourself a David, get yourself somebody that knows how to do these things. Believe me, and not everybody knows exactly kind of what business I've built, but like, I haven't built this business because I'm that smart. I built this business because I'm smart enough to know smarter people than me that know how to do the things that I don't know how to do. And then I've learned through the process of trial and error. And unfortunately, the error part sucks, but you learn more from failure than you do from success. So no matter what stage you're at, you're going to at least have some exposure to a failure here or there, but minimize those, because enough failures and you'll be out of business starting over the next day. So that I love this, because this is stuff I haven't talked about. We teach this at our money schools inner circle, like the deep, inner workings of how to structure deals and how to structure the books, but we don't go into how to structure your whole company. That's just an unbelievable topic, and one that's so important, but so few people put an emphasis on it. So I'm glad you're doing that. What would you say, in kind of wrapping this up, what would you say would be one of the biggest external obstacles that you face in dealing with the clients and helping them structure their companies?
Biggest external obstacle, probably not making time for it, just not thinking about it. They're stuck in that way of like, I've just got to do the deals and I don't care about that other side. And it's making sure getting into a rhythm and a routine, but also a process, and making it a system and a process, making it so that way you don't have to spend a lot of time, where it's a few minutes either a day or a few minutes a week, where you have a set process of, here's how I'm going to handle this side of the business, or here's the report that I'm getting on a weekly or daily basis. And a lot of people just say, oh, I don't need that, or I don't want to invest that time to do it, or that's going to take a whole bunch of time. And where people just don't have the concept of, no, it doesn't have to take that much time. It really, when you set all this up correctly and you've got someone that's really looking out for your best interests and knows how to streamline and automate things, you can take it and not have to spend 5 hours every day going through this, or you're like, I have to categorize every single transaction. No. If you've got some things on repeat or automatic that are coming in here, that's where other systems can come into play too. If you've got contractors, you can get them on. I've set this up with companies where they have them just email their invoices to like an email address. But then from there, it goes into a system where it's categorized, and someone else on their team, that bookkeeper, knows what property it's for, and it goes right into a system. So I'd say one of the biggest roadblocks is just thinking that it's going to take a bunch of time, and that there's no like profit to it, where there's like, well, this isn't making me money. Well, at the end of the day, you don't know if you're making money or not. And not just that, it can help you make more money, because if you're spending, oh man, where people are looking at their books and they're like, I had no idea I was spending this much in this area. Why are we doing that and not seeing any return? Well, that's a huge benefit of knowing where your numbers are. So just being able to say, I want to dive into this. I want to be able to see where my numbers are and actually use those numbers. That would be one of the best ways to overcome that roadblock, is just saying, hey, I know that I need help on that side of the business.
That's good stuff. So if everybody is watching this wants to get in touch with you, like, how do they go about learning more about how you can help them? What would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
SimpleCFOSolutions.com. On that website there's a business health checkup too, where I ask, probably 15 questions. It's not a very long assessment, but just kind of getting you in the mind frame. This is what, what we need to do, or where are you currently? And then just ask some pretty pointed questions there, so you can take that assessment. There's also an application form on there too, if they want to apply to work with us, because we try and work with about 10 or 15 investors a quarter. So we're working with, anywhere from that. And I also have a bookkeeping company too. If you're just like, we just need bookkeeping services, it's ralbookkeeping.com. And that's just for the bookkeeping. That's not the CFO services, but that's just for like data entry and things like that. So there's two different ways where CFO services, the Simple CFO Solutions.com, is more working with me, going inside there and really helping on the CFO side and helping with systems and processes for the financial portion. Then there's the bookkeeping side too, where it's just the bookkeeping, and that's ralbookkeeping.com. So those are the two ways, if there's two different kind of levels where people are at.
Now, I'll just kind of in wrapping, just sum up one thing. So bookkeepers in the real estate world are really difficult to find, but you might find them. They're difficult to keep. As you scale your real estate, the sheer volume of entries and the sheer volume of data that's going through your books, I can tell you from personal experience, in 2018, we went through 4 bookkeepers, good bookkeepers, long like they've been bookkeepers for 20 years. They simply couldn't handle it. They started, realized they're in way over their head. Now, this is a 20-year vet, and they left. And until I found one bookkeeper who was in the real estate space that was a specialist and kind of understood it. Now, it's a big task for her, but she gets it. So, folks, if you're looking for bookkeeping services, make sure if you're in the real estate world, get a bookkeeper that understands real estate. Otherwise, you're going to be losing them just as fast as you lose the fish when you're out fishing. Maybe you're a better fisher than me. But anyway, all right. So thank you so much for joining us today, David. And for all of you, I hope you guys grab some real golden nuggets in this episode of the Real Estate Money School. And again, I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier. Get going on your journey to becoming a rebel banker. Read books, grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide and Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. Just don't stop in your journey. Be relentless and don't listen to people that have never done what you're doing. Thank you all. Enjoy your day. We'll see you on the next show.